Welcome back to another episode of Questions with Crocker with me, Dr. Crocker, an emergency veterinarian and practice owner. My husband, Shane, who might talk a lot more than me this episode.
Weird, I'm on the side of the table.
It is weird.
Like I'm in control, and that's...
I mean, it's good for you to feel that way for a minute. And then our guests today are Tom and CJ, and they are the co-founders of Florida Veterinary Advisors. So a veterinary-specific, vet med-specific professional company that really helps us understand finances, what we need to be thinking about. And then they have a certification for exiting out of this career, right? Does that kind of wrap it up? I know we're going to get more into it, but...
Yeah, a certified exit planning designation just means we work with business owners on helping them build personal wealth.
And I would say that I'm excited about this podcast because most of the time when we come to these podcasts, we are talking about things vet med related, and really, I feel like I know more than Shane, and I kind of am the expert. But in this one, I am definitely in the minority. The three of you are far more advanced. Everyone has a finance background and degree, and I do not. And I would say that that has hurt me overall. And if I didn't have Shane as my partner, I probably would not be where I am today because I didn't really understand a lot of this stuff as a youngster, as a veterinarian starting out. And so we did get a couple great questions, but I, overall am just excited about this talk and hoping I learn a lot. I will try not to control the whole thing. Shane thinks he might be able to control some of it, so we'll see. But recently we are kind of big forecasters in life, and we have some questions really related to the beginning of your career. But Shane and I specifically are starting to talk about when do we want to retire? And if we have a goal of a certain age or a certain time, what does that look like financially? Like, what do we need to retire? What can we do now to set ourselves up for that goal? And I think that a lot of people maybe don't think that way. Do you guys see that where people all of a sudden say, oh, I want to retire next year? And you're like, oh, buddy, you have some things you need to be doing.
I think a lot of I think the goal everyone's after, but they don't know that they're after, is what we call financial independence, which is essentially my balance sheet can reproduce my income for my entire life. All my bills are paid for, no matter whether I work or whether I don't. And so that independence of needing a paycheck, I think that's usually called retirement. We actually don't call it we call it quitting forever. That's what we call it. But I think with retirement comes another problem, which is, okay, I retired. Now what? So a lot of the times we can't really retire from something that we're passionate about unless we're retiring to something that we are also passionate about. Otherwise, we just sit around and then wonder, what are we doing? And then we go back to the profession that we were in.
That's actually a great point because when I said, when do we want to retire? What did you say?
Well, I said I'm on retirement.
No.
Yeah.
What did you really say? Which is true. You're not beholden to go to a job or spend a certain amount of time.
I mean, what you said is right on point with us. Like, if we retire in 10 years, what is retirement to us? And I think that is, like you said, financial independence, but we're still going to do something we love. And we're not going to sit around and, hang around at the house. We're going to be active and do stuff and find something we're passionate about. So I would echo, kind of the same thing. And that's what we talked about recently is, when do we want to exit our day-to-day profession? But then what does that look like after we do that exit? Because I know we're not going to sit around and not do something.
You didn't marry someone that was going to just stop everything.
Well, most business owners aren't that way. Like,
that is true.
That's why they're entrepreneurs. They want to build. Do you
deal with a lot of entrepreneurs more than, like, with the veterinarians you talk to? Do you feel like the people that are very entrepreneurial business owners are the ones that you're kind of catching early on? And then maybe there's people later on that just didn't think like that, and all of a sudden are saying, oh, I need to be jumping on this. Like, what is the time frame you usually start working with somebody, and what type of person is that usually?
You read my mind, because I was literally thinking about that before you even said it. And it seems that the people that tend to gravitate to us the most have had, I don't know, there a lot of it, even financial related. There's some event or someone or a conversation that's been had that's pushed them in that direction of, hey, I need to come talk to you. And then there's like a good group of people out there to where it's, I don't need a financial advisor. I keep even think of two who are people who are just getting out of school, and I don't have any money. And at some point, like I always love to ask the question, I'm like, so what is it going to take for you to actually get money? And what's your plan to actually get there to have that money to then feel like you can actually talk with an advisor? And most of the time, it's people, I've found that from doing this for over 10 years, that usually there's a lot of education that's involved along the way. And we're just trying to plant little seeds in people's heads like, hey, maybe the way that you're approaching these things need to be thought about a little differently from the mainstream of how most people approach things. And, even retirement on the factor where we were just talking about a second ago, there's always this like definitive time period where it's like, I'm done. And then usually when people are ready to retire and then they go to seek counsel from someone is, the day after they've decided that they're ready to retire. And it's like, well, I can't fix the whole world for you. And like, I think with some people trying to sell their business, even just like in your guys' instance, it's like, hey, we want to maintain a certain lifestyle at a point. How do we do that? And what is the timeline that we need to be following to make sure that this comes a reality for us? And I think that's where the mindset that where a lot of people in veterinary medicine, where it's, I'll go find someone when I feel like it's the right time or when I think it's the right time. And most people don't know what that time really is.
Yeah, I mean, in this profession, we're a little reactionary, I think, in business circumstances in general. Like even people that decide to be practice owners, Shane and I talk to a lot of them and we're asking a lot of questions and they haven't thought of half the things that, we were thinking about going into practice ownership. It's more, we'll get into it and then we'll kind of see what we need. And I personally like building a team of people way better than me at certain things that I don't have the strong skill set in. And having him help with the finances of the practice has taught me so much. I did not know what a KPI was. I did not know how to read a P&L. Like there's some very basic financial things that I wasn't prepared to do, understand COGS, understand margins. So I think having people who really get certain aspects of business is huge. And you said earlier, CJ, like no one really thinks that your job and role is maybe a more essential one. I would say if you really want to focus on capitalizing on all your hard work and what you're doing, your role would be one that's really important. Earlier, the better, right?
Well, I think it has less to do about that. It's the traditional view of financial management that those particular positions, like if you look at 10 financial advisors, you can have 10 different business models in front of you, right? And so people oftentimes aren't really sure why do they engage with a financial advisor? And financial advisors, by and large, are really not really financial advisors. They're really investment advisors, but they call them financial. So people think financial advisor is synonymous with just like you go to them for investments, as opposed to there are financial advisors out there that actually help with business planning. And with business planning comes life planning. Right. So, because the only reason why entrepreneurs build businesses is because they want to build something that is going to exist beyond themselves, see something wrong with the world, and they want to fix it. So, in the pursuit of doing that, the idea with entrepreneurship in general is for them to then be rewarded for the risk that they took to create an organization that is worth more than the sum of its parts is worth more than the parts individually. And for that, they're compensated via profits of an organization. And they are essentially a certain level of freedom that other people just simply aren't going to be able to enjoy.
Yeah. And I will say, we have never, and you can jump in on this too, but we don't really work from a place of fear when it comes to business and opportunity, because our thought is, one, the younger we are, the more risk we can take. And two, me, especially with a veterinary degree, I can always find a job. I can always make money in some way, shape, or form. And a lot of, young veterinarians especially are like, the debt and all the things. And I think they're just so overwhelmed and they can't see past any of that to the upside, in our profession financially. And really, it's kind of a dirty word that like veterinarians are successful financially, which is frustrating because we did put a lot of time and energy into our degrees. So I think that your skills and your knowledge are very needed. It's just connecting you with those people that need it. And I do have some questions that I got online from like a lot of younger grads, a lot of the similar questions. But before we jump in those, is there anything you want to say, or is there?
I think more of a question. So, for your book of business today, the clients that you've worked with, how many are uh, owners of vet hospitals versus those that are just associate veterinarians? Because we know we're talking about ownership, 'cause that's what we do. But I think there's still a huge need for associate veterinarians
Yeah.
to
I think we
start
need to
early.
bust out the NDA. I
Do what? Sorry.
think we need to bust out the NDA here first before we talk about
Oh,
this.
Well, I think the it's funny because we used to track a lot of that. We stopped tracking it mostly because it seemed like the more business owners that we have as clients, the more associates we tend to add, because for every business owner, there's multiple associates. And so we do financial wellness within businesses as well. So what happens is the owner brings us in and is like, pays for financial planning for 3 other vets who are associates. So, you to kind of figure out that mix, we used to track it. We stopped tracking it a while ago, but there is some mix in there, just
Yeah,
because, but associates do require a lot less time than a business owner.
with practices, over the years, we have started shifting more of our mentality over time to support more owners. And I think it's the veterinary community at large, there is a gap of financial knowledge that we're trying to help fill. And there's also this transition of ownership that is happening to where these veterinarians, these practice owners started a practice back in the 70s, 80s, 90s. And now all of a sudden it's like, I'm ready to get out of ownership of these businesses. And then there isn't enough people along the way to support that transition. And I will say it's scary to me, and I don't understand how a lot of people can go throughout life. And maybe, Tanisha, you can add some insight onto this too, where how someone can go throughout their entire business career, and then all of a sudden it's like, I'm ready to retire and have no idea what their business is worth, how that's going to play in their retirement plan. And all of a sudden they're like, I'm done. I was done a week ago.
yeah.
Like that frightens me. And I know we're helping support a lot of practices along the way to do that. And even the newer generation of practices that are out there. How are you being able to, is there a way that you can create a plan to where your plan relies very little on the sale of your business, that it gives you the choice if you want to sell it to another employee versus having to maximize the value of it through an investor group? And I think on the coming back here with the not knowing at the very end of all of this, I mean, what's your viewpoint around that?
I think that our profession in general is made up of people that figure things out as they go.
Got it.
And, kind of you don't know what you're going to get when you walk in a room and a dog's throwing up, right? There's 20 things that could be going on. You figure it out and you kind of what they need. So we don't think that far ahead a lot of times. And for a long time historically, and probably I feel like in business in general, it was you build the business up and you sell it and you make your big chunk of cash, and like that's what you live off of. And that was always what I kind of thought. I mean, I wanted to be a practice owner because I knew there was a big financial upside, if you do have a successful practice. But I don't think I realized, one, what it took to make a successful practice, especially in this economy, and two, all the little things I need to be thinking about along the way that don't just involve the business and diversifying, and just there's so much. And I do think it's too much to go into like on this podcast, right? Like all the advice and all the things. I hope one of the main takeaways people have is, if you are a young veterinarian and you have any goal whatsoever of, having financial freedom in the future, people like you who can really dive deep into someone's lifestyle and finances and goals are the people that can help people get there.
But I think the 80-20 rule applies here too. I would venture to say that 80% of veterinarians that go into business ownership don't do it because of the financial outcomes of it. I think the majority go into it because they want to control what that hospital looks like. They want to control the culture. They want to practice medicine the way they want to practice medicine. And it could be they just got steered into that because they went to work for somebody that just retired and sold them the practice. So I would venture to say 80% of the veterinarians that become owners don't do it for the financial benefit. And then they get to the end of their career and they haven't planned for the financial future, but they have an asset here that they need to do something with. So I think that's probably a big issue too, is that they get into something without the financial knowledge or the end goal in mind. And then they just wake up one day saying, hey, how do I get out of this?
Well, I think it's not just vets that are just putting out fires. It's pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
Putting out fire. I think very few people actually sit down and reflect and think of like, what do I want out of life? Like, forget about business. Forget about like, what do I want out of life, and how do I get that? And is it meaningful to me? A lot of people, I think, like even nowadays, they're chasing meaning as opposed to having a set of values and a track that they're running on. So I think a lot of the nice thing about vet med is that you go to school, you become a veterinarian, and then you have a set of values that are instinctively because you're a vet. Like, you like animals, you want to help animals. So already there's a built-in value infrastructure there, but then it's taken it a little bit beyond that of like, okay, I want to make an impact on this world. This is how I've chosen to do that. How does that then completely change that dynamic, being a business owner and then also being responsible for an organization on top of doing my original duty that I really set out to do to make impact as me as an individual for my life in helping animals and helping other people that are caring for animals.
I think that's probably accurate. I mean, with the businesses that we own, Shane talks all the time about how much emotion is attached to our vet hospital compared to other businesses, and also how much like we want to help, but we still have to run a business, and how little the margins are compared to other businesses. And so I think that's probably a lot of it. Like they're wanting to fulfill, and they've had this dream forever of being a vet, and they're finally there. And the making money side of it, unless you are more business minded or financially motivated, is maybe a little bit more on the back burner. But I do think that this is important to kind of maybe start at the beginning. So I had a couple different questions, and one was actually from a pre-vet student, which I thought was like, wow, you're already thinking ahead, which is great, right? So at Sophia _ Renee 03 said, as a current veterinary student, what is the best way to manage student loan debt? And I do think that student loan debt, the way it's grown, even since I graduated school, is one reason why maybe people are thinking a little bit more about their finances earlier on than they used to, because the amount has increased so much and it feels very restricting for opportunities and things like that. So if you're in vet school, honestly, Shane and I, we had like envelopes of cash, and we had so much money for groceries, so much money for gas, entertainment. If we didn't like...
Those are very small envelopes.
Yes. But,
Very small.
we ate a lot of spaghetti, a lot of ramen. Like we were budgeters. Like our life then versus our life now is so different, right? But again, the debt is just huge now too. So what can they do other than, try not to spend extravagantly in vet school? What else could they do when it comes to student loans and trying to decrease that as much as possible? Anything?
There's a lot to that question.
Yes.
If you're already in school, I'm sure whatever you could have done to get any type of scholarships or get any type of other funding is already kind of coming past. Maybe there's still the ability to look for some opportunities. I know when I was in college, they were still giving out scholarships and money when I was in school, and you could apply for it. And nobody actually applied for some of the things that I got money for. I'm like, it's kind of bizarre.
There is actually websites, and you can literally put in like all these different things and then try to find scholarships. I found out my hometown had a scholarship for vet students, and I got like $1,000 from my hometown just because I was a vet student from this town. So I definitely was on the hunt for scholarships and as much as possible.
It makes me think about back in school because there was this Macintosh Computer Society. I'm a Windows guy. I mean, I have Macs and all these other things. And I was like, well, I'm just going to apply for it. I was the only one who applied for it, and I got $1,000. And I was like, shoot, I'm not even a Mac user. And
we don't want you to get in trouble with Mac, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have a Mac, I have Apple Watch, iPhone. I mean, it's obsessive at this point.
Yeah.
I would say like in college, just because there's a certain amount of loans that are being offered to you, it does not mean that, hey, I should take all of these loans. It would be good to break down of like, well, how much do I need for tuition? How much do I need to be able to pay for living? It'd be good to come up with some kind of a food budget I know it's very easy, especially when you're in school, to, if you haven't been in the mindset of cooking and preparing things. I mean, I ate a lot of ramen noodles and peanut butter and jellies when I was back in college
Yes.
myself. It is just trying to live, I wouldn't say like a hermit, but living very frugal as much as you possibly can to keep those loans as low as possible.
And I
Uh,
don't know that people know that they don't have to take out the full amount offered. I think that's actually something that might be
yeah.
interesting to some people. I will say, I mean, I had people in vet school that purposely took out the max amount and they bought new computers, they bought a horse, they did, I mean, they
Mm.
were like, this money's available to me. I'm just going to do it. And one day I'll be a surgeon, so I'll just pay it all off or, whatever. But my very cheap, likes to budget heart was like, wait, what? What are you doing? They're like, yeah, you can take out this much. So I'm just going to take the max amount. And that mentality was interesting to me because it's a lot of money and it wasn't even that much money back then.
Oh
So,
yeah. Well, I mean, I have my own example here. When I was in college, I mean, I applied for, they had Bright Futures. I don't know if that's still, how big of a thing that is still. And I know when you go to vet school, you're going into the next level, but then there were scholarships. And then I remember even towards the latter part of my senior year, I think I was offered close to $25,000 in loans. And then I was like, well, out of this, in reality, how much do I need? I mean, my board was covered, my room and board was covered. I had, food plan. I think I took $10,000 because I was like, it'd be nice to have at least some kind of a cash cushion in my bank
yeah.
just for whatever it was. Because otherwise, like, where am I going to go? I don't have any credit cards. I'm a college kid right now. And, being able to take what is necessary. And then if you need a little, because there are people, yeah, too, in Tunisia, I've seen, we're going on a trip to Europe and then they buy a brand new car and they do, it's like, wow. I will say on the flip side, just to throw in here, for people who are graduating and they have student loans, it can feel like a huge mountain that's in front of them.
Mhm.
200, 300. I mean, you go out of the States and you go to an island, 500,000 in student loans. And it can be a bit of a drag. I will say, if it can help in any context here of just mindset to make you, one, be able to look at it a little differently. You went to school, you took out all these loans. Let's say it's $300,000. You're now 30 years of age, and now you're making $100,000 per year. Let's say if we were to fast forward that over 35 years at 100,000, no pay raises, you're going to make $3.5 million. And you took out $300,000 to make $3.5 million. In my mind, that's a pretty good trade-off. I think
Yeah.
the biggest thing is like,
Yeah,
how do you tackle that bear?
Yeah, if you could buy a business for 300,000 and sell it in 10 years for 3.5, you do it any day of the week. So
Amen. So then it's the matter of like, well, how do I tackle this bear and also be able to live my life and do the things that I want to do? And I will say it is a real issue here because it's like, even people who are making $100,000 a year, $300,000 student loan. You live in a state that has state income tax, you have federal income tax, and like you have rent at Tampa, Florida. Ooh, I mean, like a 1-bedroom apartment is like $2,000 a month now. And it's like, I don't understand how some people are affording those things. So then it really comes down to where there are the benefit of the doubt, where there are programs out there to help minimize what you pay towards them to give you some breathing room. So now you just got to be smart on the tail end of that to make sure you're doing the right moves.
So is that part of what y'all do as planners? Let's say that you go into a business, you work with the owner, you've got some young associates there and they're part of the program. Is a big chunk of that trying to figure out how do we manage the student loan debt? How do we budget to have this paid off in X? Or how do y'all typically look at that?
It's a matter of strategy. So being debt free doesn't mean that they're financially free if they're still living paycheck to paycheck. And so paying off loans strategically over time while maintaining liquidity and access to funds, it has more to do with behavior and boundaries of my cash flow than it does with math. Money doesn't work like math, right? Money does what we tell it to do. So I think oftentimes we're peeling people off the ceiling, so to speak, with their student loans and saying, look, you're not going to chunk these away and get them done in 2 or 3 years. And even if you could, you would still be broke 5 years from now. So let's look at strategically how to pay these off. Some people come to us and we look at their income relative to the student loan. We're like, yeah, you're pretty much going to have this done in like 2 years. Like that, like you can safely pay them off. Some people come to us and we're like, yeah, you're probably realistically never paying that off unless you own a practice. Right? You're just never actually going to be able to make the income. Like the IBR is well below the interest. The interest is accumulating. You at that point, you're building a balance sheet for the IRS payment at the end of forgiveness. And people don't realize that even the IRS payment doesn't necessarily have to be in one chunk too. Right. You can actually stretch that out over the course of time. And people say, man, I'll be paying off my loans for the rest of my life. Yes. But as long as you're living a lifestyle that's feeding your family and feeding you emotionally, who cares about the debt? Let the debt be what it's going to be. You can't go back in time and change it. All we can do is just mitigate the damage moving forward.
So for the people that are pre-vet or starting out vet school, trying to limit how much you're taking on as debt is always, and that's just a life lesson, right? Like trying to budget, what do you need versus what do you want, and trying to limit that as much as possible is important. I also think, so at hope.dbm24 said, general advice is a new grad planning. And I just want to say first, Tom, you saying, you get paid $100,000. None of these small animal vets are getting paid that anymore. They're all getting paid way more than I ever got paid when I got up.
It was easier for me to do math on the spot
math.
with
I know.
100
I just want to make sure for anyone listening that's not in vet med, they're definitely making more than that. But I've absolutely seen people that decided to go, into emergency medicine, and they paid off, 250, 300,000 within 3 years. Now
Yep.
they worked their butts off and they hustled. But I do think, what are those things when you have a new grad and they're coming out? I don't want them, honestly, to just take the highest paycheck or the biggest bonus, because I don't know that that's the most sustainable option for this career in the long run, right? They need to get paid well for the work that they're doing, but you absolutely can sell your soul also and then be miserable and just want to quit this profession. So what are some of the things that you would tell them? Budgeting, obviously, but what else for new grad veterinarians?
So I'm just making sure.
It seemed like you wanted to say something, CJ.
I do. I'm still, but you know me. I always talk too much.
I like how respectful he was trying to be. He's like,
well,
it's taken us a while to get to this part,
well,
but
listen,
yes, we are.
Well, Harrison, if you want to cut out this whole segment, but like, I don't know if you guys noticed that I've done this a couple times where like that's me telling Tom like your turn, right?
He backs away.
Or if I back away, that tells him like, okay.
You did learn the body language when we did this.
Let me think. I don't even remember. What was it?
So new grad veterinarians, what are we telling them besides budgeting? Besides picking, a decent first job that's sustainable, that will value you financially, but maybe not the most valuable financially. What are some other things we're telling new grad veterinarians about their finances?
It's a lot about the package, especially the first year out, right? The first year out, you're setting the tone for the rest of your career. Now it's about learning. That first year on the job, second, I'd say probably in the first 3 years, you really want to get you want to have the opportunity in front of you to learn and to figure out where you want to go with your career over time. Right. It is less about the money. The money will come. The money will be there. We tell people, look, if you're out of school and you think you want to go into equine, right? You're 80% sure that you should go into equine. Go into equine, right? Find somebody to study under, learn. And I think that because those first 3 to 5 years out of vet school, I mean, those are the time. Most likely they're not married. Most likely they don't have kids. They're more mobile. They can move states. They can move cities if they need to. So it's really focusing on their career of what does their heart tell them that they should be focusing on as far as what segment of vet med that they want to really, really do. They may not land there, but the experience and at least taking the steps in order to do that. And because the paychecks, again, paycheck will come, but if one company's offering another, $800 a month over another, but the company that's going to pay you less has more learning opportunity and more growth and going to give you more exposure to the things that you think you need and you want longer term, don't go after the highest paycheck, right? Go after what's going to give you the most experience.
I was excited too when I was at the career fair at A&M this past weekend. They had a little mobile coffee unit set up And so I went to get coffee because obviously I live off coffee and cortisol. And the girl working it, she actually was married to one of the fourth year vet students. And she decided to create this mobile coffee unit, and she was doing weddings and events and all these things. And I told her, I said, having a partner, like a hustling partner or someone who views opportunity as let's go for it, is great, I think, as a veterinary professional. I mean, Shane, any crazy idea I have, he's like, sure, let's try it. And I think that has helped us in our relationship, but also like financially in the long run. It's paid off us being willing to diversify a little bit what we're doing, but also try new things. So is there like early in the career, you should maybe try to put your money in different aspects of things? Is it if you have an entrepreneur mindset, it doesn't even have to be you open a practice. Maybe you invest in a veterinary product or a company or something. Like, do you help people find those opportunities or talk about or work through what those look like financially for them?
I think the question to be asking here, especially around, yes, we're always looking for opportunities. We're always trying to find some place to put our money. We always want to make sure we're making the right moves. And anyone who's starting off, I think at any phase of your career should be looking at, how do I give myself the most control and the most flexibility to pivot when life doesn't work the way that I think it's going to work. And the mindset that a lot of people will get out of school and then jump into aggressive student loan repayment automatically puts them in a spot to where it's like, if life hits the fan and all of a sudden things are not working out, like they get in a car accident, there's a sickness that pops up, all of a sudden they need help take care of their family member, they want to get married, they want to buy a house, they want to do all these things. How are they preparing themselves for that? Even like when people will, let's say they say, I don't care about my loans, I'm going to pay the payment forever, it's going to be my pet, I'm going to name it Harry, and I'm just going to take all my extra money and I'm going to basically be spending it, and I'm going to go, what's the term here? I'm going to take the money. I lost my train of thought there, what I was saying when I said Harry.
I know I'm stuck on the Harry too. I feel like now I'm always going to think of student loan payments when I hear
Harry,
Harry.
right?
I like it. I like it. Yeah.
Big hairy student loan payments.
Yeah.
It's getting in that mentality of, here it is. Like, let's say they start maxing out their 401k, or they have a 403b because they work for a public institution. And it's like they shovel all this money in there and then they have no cash in their bank account. And then, I want to get married. Where do I get money? I go to my 401k and I pay penalties and taxes on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a good rule of thumb, what we always teach people is, one is you got to understand how you're protecting yourself from risk. So what kind of risk exposure do you have? And what kind of savings plan are you putting in place, in addition to also trying to tackle any debts that you have? And the best thing that you could ever do in your plan is, let's say you get on a path to where you're confident with is paying your loans at a certain level. You've at least come to an agreement of like, I'm going to pay it at this rate for right now. And then you can save a butt ton of money. 20% of your income is what we encourage people to save. You pay your student loans. Let's say you picked a certain time period, and then you get to a part where you've accumulated $100,000. You have the ability to now strike a check and pay off your loans. You have $100,000 to go buy into a business. You can go buy a house, get married, do whatever the fact that you want to do. And you're not stressing about what's going to happen. And, some people, they are completely delaying life to get to a certain part. And there are some people, they do make it to the other side of loan repayment. And I mean, I'm stoked for them. I'm like, that's incredible that you've gotten there. Now we got to figure out how to build the right habits and behaviors. And hopefully you didn't get married and have 5 kids.
Yeah.
All the other factors, like how are you going to cover all that?
Yeah.
So do y'all typically have conversations with a young associate saying, hey, let's look at the end goal and back into that? So let's say you want to retire. Do you ask them those type of questions like, hey, when are you looking to retire? Is it 55? Is it 60? Is it 40? How much money you're going to need at retirement, income wise? Y'all do that type of
counseling
for young vets, or is it more like, hey, let's set up everything that you need to set up and then kind of talk about that in 5-10 years?
Short answer, yes. But you guys know me probably well enough to know that there's no such thing as a short answer.
I was going to say, so we're done.
The answer is yes. But it's when they're young, it's much more detailed than that because you have so much life in front of you. And so it yes, we do that. However, we also will probably, we definitely put way more emphasis on flexibility and control, less on the things you can't control. We can't control investment returns.
Sure.
You can control what you invest in. You can't you can't control the returns. You can't control interest rates. You can't control tax rates. You can't control Congress. So while a lot of other people are really focusing on, okay, if this tax rate's there and that takes, like, we're not going to do that, especially if the time horizon's over 20 years. But what we are going to do is we're going to look at the qualities, not just the quantities of how people are planning, and then look at strategically how do we win the short game to automatically win the long game.
Is there ever anyone that you have, give me the tea. Now, is there ever anyone that you've worked with that you've like looked and said, I don't know that we can get you out of the hole, or I don't know that we can get you to your goal,
all the time.
but like we'll do the best we can?
All the time. It happens all the time.
Is it because they came to you too late, or is it because they're not open to changing habits, or is it kind of both?
Both.
Or
one or the other.
Say, at the same time, they just don't have enough money coming in to really fix it. Because it's like, really the equation comes here. If you look at it, it's simple as form. If you're making X, your bills are Y. You either have to, like, if your bills are more, if Y is greater than X, then you have to have more X, or you have to cut down on Y. And it's like the equation that comes in here, it's just, are you willing to take the necessary steps to increase your income to be able to counterbalance and keep your expenses at a certain level? And when someone comes to us with loans that are 1.5, 2 times what they make, they have $100,000 income, they have $300,000 in loans, that's going to be very difficult to repay that debt back and do everything else. Because the spotlight will be just on that. And we have to have a real conversation with people. But I think what really brings the confidence for them is that, hey, look, there is hope here. What we need to do is focus on how do we create that flexibility and control for you right now. And then over time, we just keep looking at moving the needle a little bit where we can. And let's say all of a sudden, we've had people become ER vets making 250, 300, 400,000. And now they're in a cash flow position to where, okay, now is it important to you to knock out your loans quickly? Do you want to keep saving a butt ton? What do you want to do?
Yeah. And I do think, I do hate the idea, I'll be honest, of like, we did go into this profession to help, and I kind of hate the fact that the loans are so big that some people do have to, in a way, make a financial decision potentially because for their job or what they're doing, because not everyone wants to be an emergency vet. We don't need everyone to be an emergency vet, right? A lot of people do want to do mixed animal or equine, and those things do pay less in a lot of ways. Now, you're also sometimes living somewhere that the cost of living is going to be less, and so some of that does help a little bit. But it is hard that loans are just so big that it dictates some of your career decisions in that way. Do you see any changes happening in the world ever with that? Or do you think there's a ceiling that's going to happen? Because as far as I see, things continue to just get more expensive, just in general, right? So if you're talking to someone who wants to go to vet school or is thinking about this career, do you still feel like the upside is better than the downside? Or if they have to like pay for all of school with loans, what would be your advice to them? Or what do you want them to think about? That was a lot. I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, vet med gets tested at different parts at different times, whether it be the price of the sale, whether it be the quantity of vets. And I think right now, the short answer to your question is no, don't see too much of a change as far as like if someone's thinking about vet school, they should go to vet school, right? They should try to do it as cheaply as possible. And if that means, deciding on the school based upon how much it's going to cost, then, make that decision. Try to keep the cost as low as you can because it's only going to help you over the long run. But I think coming back to a couple of the things that you say, vet med, at least from what we see, there's an entrepreneurial generation that's coming up just after the millennials, and they're not getting as much of attention as I think they should. And this Gen Z, my daughter is included in Gen Z. She's 17. All of her friends, like I don't think there's a boy that she hangs out with that is not thinking about business ownership. And so there's definitely more of this thought process of like, I want my life to matter. And I think that the way that I'm going to leave my impact on this world is to create an organization. And so I think that has flown into the vet med. We've seen it at the VBMA meetings. We've seen it more and more and more. These vets are coming out of school going, I think I can own a place, because they want to practice good medicine and they want to leave an impact that is much greater than they even. I think they're thinking big, but I don't think they even know that they're going to leave a bigger mark than they're even aiming for.
Yeah, and I do think that the flexibility that practice ownership gives you with time is valuable, and that's also something that generation's really looking for, to be able to make something that works with their life and isn't just like their life is their work. And I think that's where the ownership mentality, I kind of see it with the VBMA and with the students. So I'm happy that we kind of got a little, like a tidbit taste of, what you guys can do, and really just maybe the mentality that we need to have in our profession, and the things that we need to work on, especially as early as possible. So if older veterinarians, I would say I'm included in that, are starting to think of, when do I want to have financial freedom? When do I want to be able to maybe walk away from this practice or the things that I have to do every day and get to do more of the things I want to do? You guys are the certified estate planners. So do you have free consultations? Like, how would someone reach out to you and say, hey, I heard Crocker's podcast. I realized it might be coming up sooner than I think, or I want to jump on the ball. What does it look like if someone wants to kind of start that jump off, conversation with you?
Go to our website, flvetadvisors.com, and go to contact us. Fill out your form. Someone on our team will reach out to schedule a time for us to chat. I think the biggest goal for us is to figure out, hey, where are you at? How can we support you? What does it look like for us to work together? And if we decide that we want to take the next step from there, we'll really be able to start rolling out the red carpet. But usually it just starts with a conversation. And I think some people, they might be like, well, I'm not ready to talk, or they're in a spot to where, hey, look, I'm not sure if I want to work with someone else because I have a person that I've been working with for some time. Usually just a conversation can help us flesh that out. I know if I've had multiple lately with people where I'm like, hey, look, just tell me what you got going on and let's chat. And then usually there's areas that I'm like, hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Have you thought about this? And then it's like, should we talk more? Like, what would you like to do from here? And then we can figure it out.
Yeah, I do like the fact that you deal with a lot of, especially practice owners who are looking to sell, and kind of what that world looks like, and that maybe you can set them up where, corporate is not the only option. And there might be some other ways to go about that, especially if they have a bigger practice, because that's definitely been something we've kind of talked about and looked at. The other thing is the idea of a practice owner kind of giving this as a benefit to associates is really intriguing to me, because I think the more your associates are managing their finances and feel like the work they're doing is valuable and they're financially compensated well, the better they'll actually be as an associate. So if I, as a practice owner, was like, hey, I have 3 vets and I want you to meet with them, or I want them to have the opportunity to talk to you, is it the same thing? I just go to the website and fill out a form and set that up? Or do I have them each do it?
It depends on how you want to handle it. I mean, there are people we've worked with, because we charge a planning fee when we work with people. So like if you did decide to take that next step, we want to lay out like what the expectation is on that end. And there are a lot of owners that will cover the planning fee for team members, or if they're like, hey, I want to make the connection, or if it was, can you come in and do an education for some people that actually do want this? We can always work that out. So if you are someone we don't know, and you want to talk about it, I would encourage for you to reach out yourself. Let's chat about it and then figure out the next course of action from there.
I love it. Do you have any financial questions that I feel like you already know all the things. So
Definitely don't know all the things, that's for sure. I've got a lot of questions, but I'm too long for this podcast.
what is there any like big question that you have that you're like, ooh, that thing they said I didn't really think about, or anything that you...
I don't think the question as much as the thought process. We had a discussion this week, and neither one of us have really thought about retirement. Up until this point, it's been head down, if we retire, we may retire one day, but what does that really look like? But we never really talked about what is retirement to us? What does that timeline look like? And I think, early to mid 40s, it's really starting to hit us that at some point over the next 10 years or so, we want to retire, and we want to retire at our own terms, whatever that looks like to us. But we're just now really starting to have that internal conversation about what does that look like? When do we want to trigger it? And I think groups like you could really help organize those thoughts and put a real plan in place. When right now it's just us kicking the ball down the road, saying, "Wouldn't it be nice if?" Right.
Yeah.
So I think if I took one thing away, it's early on. You can't start too early planning, but then once you get to our age, where we're really starting to talk about the R word, what does that look like, and what does it feel like? So.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. And honestly, before us talking about it, I didn't realize, like you were talking about, like the 401k, I didn't realize like I can't just grab some of these investments that I've been doing I can't just grab that money when I want. Like like for some reason in my non-finance brain, I'm like, oh, we've done all these things, but it's like, no. This is what's actually available to us. This is what's liquid. This is what we have to wait on. And that has been an education for sure. So obviously you guys are brilliant. And I do love that you have a heart for veterinary professionals specifically. Just give me a quick, why do you like working with people in vet med? Why is that really your focus as advisors?
I will say, it originally started from the fact that people were just being sold products and they really wanted education. I think I've personally have grown to like the community because people are very receptive. They really want to learn. They really want to understand more. Once you break back that cluster of I can do it myself, they really want some help. And I think it's nice feeling wanted in a community that people really want to work with us. And it's interesting just the light bulb moments when we do have conversations with people of, hey, look, I'm actually in a way better spot than I was thinking that I was. So it's cool seeing the impact that we're having and continue to have within the industry. Oh.
Is your dog okay?
Yeah. As the dog
My
bark.
cat has been trying to harass me and get into the camera the whole time. This like last 10 minutes, he's like, but I'm supposed to be on camera. So don't worry. Animals are allowed to be a part of this podcast.
That's good.
It is a veterinary one.
It caught me off guard there for a second.
I also think that working within vet med, because burnout is a thing, there's been a lot of talk with the mental stuff. And I think as we understood the market, our hearts just grew for it from the perspective of we're seeing things happen and we're going, okay, these things don't have to happen. They're very easy to solve, right? Because if you think about it, the only reason why we really experience burnout ultimately at the end of the day is because we either feel a duty beyond ourselves to serve, because if we're not helping, then we're hurting, right? So that's kind of that's a very dangerous spot to be in, because then then theoretically you should always be working and never sleep, right? But I think the other side of that is even more so like burnout comes because you're just always trying to make sure that your bills are paid. And so if you have ability, and we know that the average household income in the United States is $85,000. So we know income is not the problem for vets, especially from the monetary perspective. It's just a matter of education and being able to manage it in a different way. And if they can manage it in a great way, well, then now they have the freedom to not have to work all the time and burn out.
I love that. So I like that just the mentality maybe needs to be different, the conversations around your goals. And really, from what I'm hearing, you're basically saying we want to empower you to do the job you love and to help the people and the pets that you want to help. But we also want to make sure at the end you can really rest and enjoy the life that you've built and, be able to do that at the utmost. And whatever that looks like for somebody, you can kind of help hopefully achieve that vision over time. So I love it. I'm glad that we finally got to do one of these podcasts. Honestly, Shane and I could ask you questions for a long time because we probably need to set up a meeting. So, but I do really appreciate both of you being on here. You guys should definitely check out Florida Veterinary Advisors if you want to set up a consultation yourself. And whether you are a young veterinarian in vet school or trying to look closer to what retirement looks like for you, I think that Tom and CJ definitely would be good guys to be talking to. So do you guys have anything else? I know they can follow you on social media. They can listen to this podcast on Apple or Spotify. I was supposed to say that at the beginning. Sorry, Harrison. Do you guys have anything else that you want to plug or you want to let people know about?
Go to our website. You'll find our podcast, book, master classes, assessments. I mean, everything you could possibly dream of. I mean, if there is something you are dreaming of and we don't have it, let us know. But you can probably find it on our website.
Yeah, I forgot to say about all the education that you do. So you're at a lot of conferences, you do a lot of speaking, you have webinar. I mean, honestly, if people don't have time to even set up a meeting, you have some resources where they can kind of get a temperature of where they're at and what they might be needing to think about. So I love all that. The website is the place to check out. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you want to leave us a review, we'd appreciate it. And we'll see you next time.